It's time now for the GEICO 15. GEICO, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com to find out how much you could save. For more from UFC 276, we head out to Vegas, where our Brian Campbell is standing by. BC, the main event perhaps seemed to fall a bit flat here. Israel Adesanya walks the octagon with an urn of his opponent's ashes in his hands and then scores his way more or less to another title defense over Jared Cannonier. Another solid performance here out of Izzy, but have we entered a new season of Adesanya's career here, perhaps less flashy in-fight experience?
Well, look, this is essentially what Adesanya does. With that advantage of speed, timing, distance control, he puts his opponents in a catch-22. If you're going to have the chance of knocking me out and finding big-time success, you're going to have to walk into the spider web that is everything I just said about the superlatives of what makes Adesanya great. If you're going to go for broke, there's a great chance he's going to catch you first on the way there, and that was the equation in the end for Jared Cannonier on this night. Wasn't, in the end, willing to take that ultimate risk, came close a few times, but if you're Israel Adesanya and you can control like this and discipline your opponents, and essentially suck the excitement out of the room, will it draw some boost from the crowd? Yes. But we've got a highlight reel of Adesanya's past where if you do exactly what Cannonier did not do tonight, you end up looking up at the lights. So you can call this a more safe, a more technical period of Adesanya's reign. You can also call him one of the pound-for-pound best in this game today, and a growing middleweight champion in terms of the history books. This guy's not getting any worse. This was a standout, top to bottom, a spectacular performance, even if you weren't all that entertained, Joe.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Just the Venn diagram of discipline and entertainment don't often overlap here, BC. Let's talk about the co-main event before we get to Adesanya's future. Something of a bloodbath in the co-main. Alexander Volkanovski offering a comprehensive beatdown of Max Holloway. He was sharper, he was faster, he was first there, first out. He's emptied the division out now, BC, and done away with any doubt that lingered coming off of that second meeting with Holloway. What impressed you most tonight about Volkanovski, and what does tomorrow hold for him?
You know, it was the intention that the featherweight champion has shown. You mentioned it, Adesanya maybe entering a safer period of his career. Volkanovski was essentially first called a point fighter, a chess master, but somebody who didn't take risks. As his title defenses have piled up, we're seeing now an offensive force. The intention that Volkanovski showed did not only talk trash to Holloway in the first round of this fight, which seemed a little bit out of character, but to sit down on his punches, continuously land clean counter right hands. This fight wasn't even remotely close. In a rivalry in which you've had two fights that were close, one that was disputed, that forced a rare third fight, even though Volkanovski was 2-0 against Holloway coming in. Talk about leaving no doubt. Volkanovski's not only the better of these two historically, and now third time he proved that. He's in the conversation for pound-for-pound best in the game. He's also in that other conversation with Jose Aldo for greatest featherweight this sport has ever seen. 4 title defenses now for Volkanovski, moving into second place behind Aldo. But he is more dangerous today than he was just 2-3 years ago when he first started this rivalry with Holloway. You're looking at one of the best this sport has seen right now. Alexander Volkanovski, deal with it.
Yeah, that looked like the sharpest, the most polished version of Alexander Volkanovski that we've seen thus far, leaving no doubt in the final matchup of that trilogy. Let's sort of go full circle here and go one fight prior. No guessing really what's next here for Izzy after Alex Pereira catches Sean Strickland on the chin with your knockout of the night. A KO winner, BC. Looks like a layup for the matchmakers now. Are we in line for these two former kickboxing foes, that is, to be reunited here at the Octagon with the middleweight title on the line next up?
We absolutely are. And you talk about what makes a great style matchup for everything Jared Cannonier wasn't able to do against Izzy on this night. How about fighting a guy who has equal levels of power, it seems, in Cannonier, Alex Pereira, but a guy who's got that confidence and swagger with it, knowing he's defeated the champion Adesanya twice already when they fought in Glory Kickboxing. And, of course, that's with larger gloves. Yes, a different discipline, a different martial art. But one of those victories came by knockout. And even though Adesanya likes to remind people he had big success in those fights, Alex Pereira, in just 6 career pro MMA bouts, has made an incredible leap. He trains with former light heavyweight champion Glover Teixeira in Connecticut. And for whatever he doesn't have in terms of well-roundedness, he makes up for it with explosiveness. You saw that finishing power. I didn't love Sean Strickland's strategy of essentially walking right into what makes Alex Pereira great. But this is now a third time a charm to show you he has next level power. He's got the confidence to know he's done it to Izzy before. This is a very interesting matchup to Izzy's growing, as I mentioned, title reign, which is now upwards of 5 defenses.
Yeah, and the talk starts now as the history goes long back between those two. Should be a good one. One of the night's lowlights was the Sugar Show lacking its usual sweetness. BC, Sean O'Malley, Pedro Munoz getting the main card started with a no-decision stoppage after O'Malley caught Munoz with an inadvertent eye poke. I'm not going to sit here and question a warrior spirit, but I will ask you to do so. BC, was this a legitimate stoppage, or did you sense Munoz angling for an easy way out of the octagon this night?
No, it seemed to be very legitimate.
Okay.
Look, Sugar Sean was warned of going low earlier in the fight, and when you look at the replays over and over of this fight poke, he extended his hand. It looked like 2 different fingers caught the eye. Afterwards, Munoz telling the referee, I actually got poked twice on the same eye poke. He had pain. His vision was compromised. Pedro Munoz is not the type of fighter who looks for a way out. He's lost 4 of his last 5 coming in, but all 4 had been to current or former world champions. This guy wants the smoke. He's ranked number 9 in the division. And oh, by the way, I thought he was fighting well. Ultimately, it's anticlimactic. We didn't learn what we were supposed to learn coming in. But Pedro Munoz, despite a 5-inch reach and height disadvantage, was able to slow down the output of this fight and fight O'Malley on equal terms. Not the result anyone wanted, no questions answered. But I think ultimately it is what it is. Sometimes these things happen. We get a no contest, no result for the future.
Yeah, those two were just starting to work up a lather, and I think you said it there. More importantly, we don't get a true answer as to O'Malley's contender status as we move forward, so still plenty of question marks out in front of us. We do have to hand out some flowers as well here. Donald Cerrone calling it a career on the heels of a submission loss to Jim Miller. It was an emotional scene as the Cowboy laid his hat and gloves down on the mat and walked out head held high with his 2 boys in his arms. A beautiful picture, really. BC, this reality seemed to be looming for some time now. Can you offer words to the career that was here for the Cowboy?
Yeah, no surprise in the end. Cowboy was 0-6 with 1 no contest in his last 7. But you want to talk about one of the most beloved fighters that this sport has ever seen. Why? Because that phone rings and he's ready to pick it up anytime, anywhere, anyone. He's been an elite fighter. He's been on the verge of a title before, but he's more known for making fun fights against tough opponents year after year. He's one of those guys that loved fighting 4 or 5 times a year, as many as the UFC would allow. That's why he's right there in those career numbers in the top 2 or 3 for most appearances in the octagon and certainly most wins. He was tied coming in. Jim Miller broke that tie. But for Donald Cerrone, he was a, I don't want to say a comic book character come to life, but an action movie character in that regard. An old gunslinger from the Wild West. He connected with so many people. He's a beer-drinking guy who took big chances inside and out of the cage. He gets to go out here on his own terms, maybe not the best of endings, but he gave so much joy to this sport and brought an identity to it. Much respect for the Cowboy.
It is a career complete, and it is now time for the GEICO 15-second statement. BC, life favors the bold, and it takes bold to get into that octagon. Give me your bold statement coming out of UFC 276.
I teased it earlier. I think Alexander Volkanovski is absolutely in the discussion with Jose Aldo for the best featherweight in the sport's history. Not only does he own a victory over Aldo when he still had it, so to speak, and by the way, he still does, he now has 3 victories over Max Holloway, undefeated in the octagon at 12-0 up to this point. And even though Kamaru Usman typically has been getting votes of late for #1 pound for pound, the evolution of Volkanovski's game puts him at no worst directly in that conversation. In fact, I think you can vote Alexander Volkanovski as the new pound-for-pound king after this performance. When have you ever seen Max Holloway cut, busted up, and dominated for 25 minutes like that? Volkanovski is not only great, he's getting better at age 33. He might be in the best in this sport right now.
Hard to argue with coming off of this performance at UFC 276. That's the king of swing, Brian Campbell, weighing in from Vegas. Thanks, BC. Safe travels. And the conversation continues on the Morning Combat with Brian Campbell and Luke Thomas. These two breaking down all things UFC 276 and beyond. Join the conversation right now on the Morning Combat.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.